Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Welcome to the Film Realist Podcast, the film and TV podcast from a complete nobody that is hopefully for somebody. My name is Cal Naranya, and on episode 112, I will be reviewing We Live in Time, the romantic comedy starring Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. Did it make me cry? You'll have to find out in spoilers. But if you don't want anything spoiled, no need to worry. There will be a non-spoiler section of the review as well as a spoiler section. And to end the episode, of course, I will be responding to your answers to the latest question of the week. Time codes will be listed in the episode description, so if you want to hop around, you are more than welcome to. Let's jump into non-spoiler thoughts for We Live in Time.
They needed the bed back.
What's happened to my underwear?
Oh, I literally have no idea. This was all you had on you. The chocolate orange was pronounced dead at the scene.
We Live in Time might be slightly difficult to discuss in spoilers because a framework for the movie in how it's presented, in my opinion, has not necessarily been revealed yet in the marketing. So I'm going to avoid that and talk about what I can, which is probably not a ton, which is fine. But that's what spoilers are for. They're for the nitty gritty. We Live in Time is a phenomenon. I called it a romantic comedy in the episode intro. And yes, it's a romantic comedy, but there are a lot of dramatic elements as well. It's a romantic comedy drama. It's a romantic dramedy. That's what I'm going to call it. More than anything, what I appreciate from everybody involved with this film, John Crowley, Nick Payne, and especially the leads of Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. Unfortunately, it is a rarity to get a movie like this with a very small cast, two incredible leads, and have all of the drama come out of the relationship of those two characters be successful anymore. Box office. It's been a very long day. I apologize. Box office wise, I don't necessarily think this is going to be a smash hit. But what I love so much about this movie is from everybody involved, this movie only works when you have two incredible leads. And they do. Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield are phenomenal together. The dynamic to which they portray on film, the relationship, the complexities of a long-term relationships, its trials and tribulations, pregnancy, miscarriages. Now, I probably shouldn't say miscarriages, but regardless of all of the hurdles that happen in a long-term committed relationship are presented throughout this film. And the chemistry between these two leads makes it feel as if we are invited into something we may not necessarily need to be watching. All of the highs and lows of an adult relationship further in life. These are not high schoolers or young graduates right out of university. These are people in their 30s and later. Andrew Garfield, I believe, is 48? No, 40. How old is Andrew? He's 41. Wow, I aged him a lot. I'm really sorry, Andrew Garfield. Apologies for that. That'd be amazing if he was 48. That'd be the best 48 ever. But the dynamic between these two needs to work because you are selling the movie on this relationship. And the horse, which I will get further on I will explain more about in spoilers. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, trust me, it's worth hearing later. And the way to which we are shown their relationship, how they both approach their lives, what their thoughts of are with the time they have, with the time used, with the time moving forward, that whole relationship and how it's explored, it's a meaningful one. And while there's going to be a lot of people that probably feel that this film is not something necessarily to be seen on the big screen, I completely disagree. When you have the star power of these two stars, as well as a tightly written script, very well done direction from John Crowley, you are sitting for an hour, almost 2 hours, compelling story with these two people, and they sell the entire movie on that, and it works from start to finish. I immediately feel invested in these two people, how this relationship's going to end. Is it going to work? How are they going to overcome the challenges of cancer, which I can say because we are introduced to elements of that in the trailers for this movie. And the chemistry of these two leads comes from the quality of them as actors. You feel the highs of the passionate love and the lust and the happiness that comes from being a family. Of course, this is going to work for me being a dad, but also all of the challenges that come from that relationship, your commitment of love to another person, and having to be their support network during something like cancer and pregnancy. And the way that it's presented in this film, that they are kind of on an island working to, not metaphorically speaking, all they have is each other. And the crazy circumstances to which all of these events happen, how they overcome those challenges as a couple and make for a meaningful, lasting relationship are presented in a fun, quirky, dramatic, happy, sad. The gambit of emotions is run throughout this film. And I'm so happy that movies like this still get made and aren't just dumped on streamers. This premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. Shout out to all my Canadians who saw it on September 6th. I, of course, did not. But getting to spend I think it's 108 minutes. So 2 hours and whatever that is in change. 2 hours and 40 minutes with these two people was a gratifying experience. It is an emotional toll as you are experiencing with them these different things, and the way that they are able to communicate each character's frame of mind and how they grow as people throughout the length of their relationship, and the dynamic that is expressed because of their points of view on certain aspects of their lives, how compromises are made. Sometimes people's minds are changed because of the relationship that they're in. But those difficult conversations that, particularly in a more adult relationship, that you have to have, what comes with those conversations is presented in a really realistic way. And this film does also have some out of the ordinary circumstances, not your everyday person is going to be experiencing. I'd be shocked if it wasn't inspired by some of other popular media, particularly the one of Florence Pugh being a chef. And we've all watched The Bear, so we are all entrenched in what it's like to be in a Michelin star kitchen now. Of course, yes, chef, behind. But that's what works about this movie. If you don't have a well-executed director from John Crowley, Nick Payne with this quite emotionally centered script in a unique and presenting these experiences in a atypical way, makes for the experience and the through lines feeling really meaningful, and how they're able to connect to the journeys that these two characters go on in this relationship was one I really enjoyed. And I would recommend, if you are sick of the big blockbusters, the remakes and the sequels, regardless of necessarily needing a big screen event for this intimate film that I have here with We Live in Time, it's worth your time. I'm going to say time a lot, but for a variety of the film going experience, this film certainly offers that, and I'm really grateful that it does. A lot of these films aren't going to get seen. Typically in the theaters around me, this movie wouldn't have gotten the release that it did, but because of the studio behind it, Studio Canal, as well as the massive critical reception to this, these are two incredible performances, and not for the ways that you would typically think, where a lot of the times when you make a romantic drama like this, you're going to see the emotions all to 11. The happiness being the happiest I've ever been, or the saddest I've ever been. And of course, because of the hurdles these characters have to overcome in this film, you get a lot of those challenges, but the subtlety to which they are portrayed is just a testament to Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, why they are some of the best actors working right now. And it is not easy to have the two characters work independently on their own, while at the same time feeling as if they are complete and not in a codependent way when they are together on screen. That dynamic that they portray in how their relationship develops only works because of the tools these characters have presented because of the quality of the actors. And I'm really happy that they get to do stuff like this. Florence Pugh being one of the actors who is still within the Marvel machine right now. Of course, Andrew Garfield's most recent trip would have been through Spider-Man No Way Home. But continuing the trend of showing his quality as an actor, a 2-time Academy Award nominated actor. He should have won for Tick, Tick, Boom, and I will never let that go. And so I'm going to hold on to that until he gets nominated again, which I assume will. And in saying that, I would love for something like this to get nominated, but typically what gets attention in the awards sphere is that 211 level of emotions. Look how good I cried. Look how good I got mad. And the subtlety to which these emotions are portrayed, I'm hoping it's something that doesn't get overlooked. It is, we are getting closer to award time season, which would be amazing to see. But if that's not the case, it's okay. I would recommend everybody see this if you want an intricate experience with these. Honestly, there are 2 leads. There are other people in the movie that kind of pop here and there, but the whole film is centered around the 2 people, which of course it would be. And for this to be John Crowley's next film coming off of Brooklyn, I'm really excited to see what he does next. So that will do it for my non-spoiler review. Let's jump into spoilers and I can kind of explain more about why I really like the way the relationship is presented in this movie.
There is something that your daddy and I
There's something that Mummy and me want to...
we want to talk to you about. It's a bit serious, though.
Yeah.
What I chose not to say in spoilers because I haven't seen it discussed outside of the plot or spoilers of the film is that the film is presented in a non-linear fashion where we are hopping around with the characters. And what I like about this more than anything is the through line with a lot of the main plot elements are carried over flashback wise thematically, where if something is happening that's been referenced, you'll see it, but when it is most apparent that you do see it, not, oh, we told about this thing, let's go and show that, which would be very conventional to mention something, address it, and then show it in flashback. We are shown these things thematically for the most impact, which is the relationship develops between these 2 characters. I'm going to go kind of linearly just for the sake of explaining what happened, because it's probably easiest for me to do it that way, which is one of my favorite elements, and I used it for a clip for this movie, is the most, as opposed to addressing this as a meet cute in a really funny, conventional way, we are introduced to these characters are introduced to each other when Andrew Garfield is walking back from a convenience store to buy a pen to sign his divorce papers, and he is then hit by Florence Pugh's car, and they technically meet as he wakes up in the hospital, which is hilarious. And the first thing he says to her is, "Where is my underwear?" Which is just hilarious because it's a spin on romantic comedies normally have the meet being some sort of joke, and obviously it is played slightly for laughs, but it being this, oh my god, who is this person? Where are they? Have you met Ted? Or just a momentous occasion in these characters' lives. And for the first interaction to be because of, for one, somebody's love to have died, clearly, in that he's signing off divorce papers, but we're not necessarily what Florence is doing at this time. And the relationship further develops where eventually, after he's finally divorced, he goes to her restaurant. Florence Pugh, as I mentioned, is a chef, and fed dinner. They clearly have this palpable chemistry, but she's not told in their first meeting that he's getting divorced. He then reveals it to her when he eventually does go to the restaurant to meet her, and immediately there is lust and the tension, and they are clearly involved with each other to the point where the night after their hookup, they continue to spend all day together. It wasn't just a one-night stand, and this relationship clearly is starting to grow. If it were a seed, it's been planted to turn into a beautiful relationship tree. And further along, we get the relationship as it continues to grow, and it's stated, as I said in non-spoilers, there are conversations that are had because they are older in their lives, Andrew Garfield being 41, and Florence Pugh being in her 30s, which is interesting because she's not in real life. She's 28, but I think it probably is just easier in terms of age gap not being as significant, but it's never played in a creepy way, nor why should it really, because Andrew Garfield isn't 48 and he doesn't look 41. So needless to say, that doesn't actually matter. But the relationship is continuing and clearly they care about each other. We see that throughout the early flashbacks of the relationship. But eventually, because Andrew Garfield feels that how much he cares for Alma, which is Florence Pugh's character, his name is Tobias. I'm just going to use their actors' names. It's just much easier when you're going over the plot. That he's starting to love her. And in their initial conversations, she had mentioned the fact that she didn't necessarily think kids were in her future. And we're not really given a specific reason at that point, but we further on get to see that her relationship with her daughter, which we do see in the trailers for this, what she wants to be remembered by is something she does struggle with, and not feeling that being a mom is enough. And the exploration of what that means with how you use your time being a lot of what this movie is about. What do you do with your time? What is a meaningful use of your time? Are your relationships enough as opposed to an accomplishment with the time you're given? Not that we are given a ticking clock when she is diagnosed with ovarian cancer for the second time, which is insane that the film manages to play out two different cancer recoveries, but the dynamic and the stress being experienced by everybody all at once in those two different instances, and the degree and the severity and stress being what it is the second time being much more impactful. And the reaction, particularly to the resolution when she goes into remission in the earlier part of the relationship, because as their relationship develops and they go through not having kids, and how that causes a metaphorical elephant that initially breaks up the relationship. And Andrew Garfield's Tobias realizing that, you know what? I'm worrying about the future and I'm not worrying about the now. We should care about each other now, and we will deal with that later. To quote How I Met Your Mother, that's future Tobias and Alma's problems. And their relationship continually evolves. But it isn't until Florence Pugh is diagnosed with ovarian cancer the first time that she realizes that if she was going to have kids, she would want to have Tobias's, because of the two ways that you could put the cancer into remission, deal with it from a surgical standpoint, is to have a complete hysterectomy where they remove everything, or to have a partial and still have a functioning ovary, so that way childbirth is possible. And how she has come to the realization that she loves him so much, she does now see a future where children would be a possibility. And of course, because it is such a complex and difficult thing, getting pregnant is not easy for everybody, and the struggles, particularly somebody who's had a partial hysterectomy, would have to deal with in these instances. We see them going through IVF and all of the injections and whatnot, and the highs and lows of waiting for a pregnancy test is something that I feel like is not shown in mass media. It's not something that I can remember seeing in a flagship dramatic film with two incredible leads, and I'm really glad that they did play that in this movie. And as I mentioned in spoilers, the subtlety to which they play with these, that it's not somebody bursting into tears and feeling completely devastated, but you can feel the disappointment just in the minute expressions that they share with each other. And it's very impactful, which I give, again, this whole movie is incredible because of these two leads. It doesn't work if they're not as great as they are. And eventually they do get pregnant, which is obviously a momentous occasion, and you feel the joy with these two people. But what I love so much is the film plays a lot very straight in terms of it not feeling like an outright comedy, but then we go into the level of ridiculousness while also playing up that real nature of when you are approaching the due date, when are contractions starting, how far is your partner dilated, because obviously you got to reach that 10 centimeters for the child in order to be born, coming to that conclusion where the child is quite literally born in a 7-Eleven gas station, and the stress and the panic that you feel with these two characters as this is happening is quite intense, more than anything you would really expect to see from this. But that's something that I really appreciated that this movie offers, which is it is the subtlety and the simplicity to the story allows for this extra level of event. Not every child is born in a hospital. Some are born in bathrooms. Some are born in public hallways. Some are born like a child can be born successfully in a lot of places. The variety is quite immense. And the joy and emotion of successfully delivering this child on their own with the two 7-Eleven attendees and the humor that comes from that scenario. I half expected there to be a line of dialogue where the two 7-Eleven staff members say, not the first baby born here, probably won't be the last, something like that. But the film is better for that because it doesn't do that. And you live through the momentous of them having this life, becoming a family, things finally starting to look like they're in the right direction, only for Florence Pugh to be diagnosed again with ovarian cancer and it not being able to be put into remission. It's not surgically viable for her to be healthy. She still has to go through this treatment. But at the same time, because Alma, Florence Pugh's character, is such a competitive person, thinking that accomplishments are what you need to do with your time as opposed to the investment in the relationship. And this is not to say that she hasn't done that, but this character's level of competitiveness is something we're introduced through slowly. And I appreciate that it's not a character trait from the get-go. We know she has accomplished quite a lot, but it's not been an aspect of her personality that we've been focusing with. She at one point was a world-class figure skater. Sorry for the long pause. I couldn't remember what she did. I wanted to say ice dancer, but that would be wrong. And while she is going through her cancer treatment for the second set of ovarian cancer, she is also competing in this European, at least, cooking competition, probably affecting the way that she is able to deal with her recovery, putting herself at risk, and the conversations that they have about what it means to risk yourself. Why are you doing this? And the legitimate questions of, is Andrew Garfield and their daughter not enough? What do you want her to remember you by? And the complexity to these conversations, they're not solved with simple answers. These are serious conversations, complex things. The complexity of the solution is only more difficult because of the way that these problems are presented, where she has continued to have success in this cooking competition to the point where eventually these characters are going to get married. They've set a date. They have saved the dates, but it's the same date as the competition. And what could be quite farcical is, well, we'll do both and we'll go back. No, this film treats it much more seriously than that, which is, all right, you're the person at death's door. This is what you want to do with your time. I'll put aside the getting married because this is what matters to me. And showing how much he cares for her and the meaningfulness behind that, seeing as Florence Pugh is the character with only so much time left, that they cancel the wedding because of the cooking competition. And it is only in the moment of success, and the competition's not over from what I understand. It is in the midst of the finals, but Florence Pugh is starting to struggle as they are coming to the conclusion of their final dish. Seeing her family there and seeing that this is what she wants, this is what she wants to do with her time. And nothing needs to be said. They just leave the competition and go ice skating, likely for the first time. That would be my assumption. It's not been mentioned before. And that this is the memories that she wants their daughter to be filled with. Not to be something of me, look at me, I'm on the top of the mountain. I'm the success of the cooking world. It's just the three of us in a skating rink having fun. And then, of course, going forward in time and seeing that she didn't make it. They did adopt a dog. Tobias did, Andrew Garfield's dog. And that they're continuing the cooking traditions that he had learned from Florence Pugh when they had started dating. And that they'll be okay. They have the memories that they've made together, and that's how life is. You can only do so much with the time that you have, and it's the choice that you make on how to use that time and what's meaningful to you. And it's a simple, beautiful message that is delivered successfully, and I look forward to showing this movie to my loved ones, and it's a movie I would absolutely suggest to anyone who wants to see something more intricate and delicate than some sort of bombastic comedy or blockbuster. So that will do it for spoilers for We Live in Time. Now let's jump into questions of the week responses.
Can I ask you a question? Just one?
There's something I've been meaning to ask you.
I ask the questions, you answer the questions.
Why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers?
Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Damn it. If you would like to answer the question of the week, you can always comment on the social media post that usually goes up on Thursdays or Fridays. You can email the podcast, filmrealistpod@gmail.com, or you can comment on the episode posted on YouTube. The podcast is available on all podcast platforms if this is your first time listening. Last week's question of the week, inspired by my review of Saturday Night, the film that chronicles the very first episode of Saturday Night Live and how that made that to the air. The question was, what is your favorite SNL sketch? Dave writes in Gumby. That one is an absolute classic. Dylan Pollock of Movies to Watch Before You Die writes in, I don't think I have a favorite SNL sketch, so I'm telling you my favorite Mad TV sketch. All right, great. Which is with the living mannequin who is going around killing people and only one person seems to be realizing it. You know, I've actually seen that one. I do love Mad TV. That is a super funny sketch. Haley writes in Cork Soaker. That is a classic. That one's really funny. And I love how with great SNL sketches, they are able to really push the boundaries on what would be allowed, even on late night Saturday television. That one is really, really funny. Stephanie writes in Celebrity Jeopardy is a classic. I absolutely loved Celebrity Jeopardy. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Stephanie. On the Will Ferrell best of SNL DVDs or VHSs when they used to do those, I loved so many of those SNL Celebrity Jeopardies. Anal Bum Cover with Sean Connery or Norm Macdonald. Oh man, those are so good. As him as Burt Reynolds. Those sketches are so funny and they still make me laugh to this day. Debbie writes in Julia Child. That Dan Aykroyd sketch, which is referenced in Saturday Night, is insane that made it on TV. Just even though it's piles and piles of fake blood, the absurdity, the ridiculousness of something like that happening during a cooking show, it is a classic, absolutely. Scotty Cameron. It's so hard to pick just one sketch because there are so many hilarious bits, particularly when talking about how SNL lampoons politics. I will list a few favorites of mine. Superman with Hugh Jackman, Hawkeye disappoints the Avengers with Jeremy Renner, George H.W. Bush mentors George W. Bush with Dana Carvey and Will Ferrell. That is a good one. Bush reminds us how he was terrible with Will Ferrell. Sarah Palin endorses Donald Trump with Tina Fey and Daryl Hammond, and Trump during an alien invasion with Alec Baldwin. You know, I think I've only probably seen about half of those, which is interesting. And unfortunately in Canada, a lot of the SNL sketches are not available on YouTube. NBC Universal, can we maybe figure that out? That would be great. And Alan with an A as in EH writes in more cowbell. That is, you know what's really funny more than anything? And I've noticed this while now going through all of these. A lot of these are Will Ferrell. I would love to know what everybody's favorite SNL cast member is, but I'm not going to have that be question of the week. So if you've listened to the episode, please let me know because I would love to hear from you. The show's been on, as I said last week, for 49 years, will be 50 years next fall. So let me know what your favorite SNL cast member is. This week's episode, based on romantic drama comedies, the romantic dramedy, I'm going to remove the drama from it because there are more answers probably for this. What is your favorite romantic comedy? I know what mine is. I have the answer already locked and loaded, but I'm really curious. They have been making these movies for probably 40 years, realistically, if not even longer. So I'm really curious to let me know what your favorite romantic comedy is. I know I'm removing the drama from the scenario, but I am the keeper of question of the week. Also, and I've said this at the end of a couple more of the recent episodes, if you don't want to answer question of the week, you can just send me fan mail. I'll read it. Do you have a question for me? Is there something I haven't talked about in a social media post, as a tweet, or in the episode, I'd love to answer any and all of your questions partaking with comics, video games, movies, books, whatever it may be. I'm going to be covering the Sunrise on the Reaping when it comes out in March because shockingly now I'm a Hunger Games fan. It's not something I would have predicted prior to last fall. It's absolutely shocking to me, but I will be reading that when it comes out. Next week's episode might be a little bit different, might not be. I know I'm going to be covering Agatha All Along. I do not think there's going to be a feature film covered in that. I know I mentioned in the episode I was going to be covering Tomb Raider. I did watch the pilot for the show, Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft, and unfortunately that's all I've been able to get through right now, so it might just be the capper on the end of an episode, similar to what I did with Twisters, but you can listen for sure for my... Oh no, I'm jumping ahead a week. Oh my goodness, Kyle. Next week's episode will be a review of Venom: The Last Dance. It will not be Agatha All Along. I'm jumping ahead. So that's what you can look forward to over the next couple weeks. If you haven't yet, please follow the podcast on your podcast platform. Leave a 5-star review if possible. My name is Kyle Naranya, and I will see you next time.